Welcome to the monthly meeting of the Eastchester Fire District Board of Fire Commissioners. A holy Yom Kippur to all our residents. And I'll make a motion to call the meeting order here at 7:15.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so we'll start with the budget workshop, David. Excuse me?
Oh, come on over here.
Sorry.
Come on, Jamie. Come on up, Jamie.
Welcome to the dais.
Why, thank you. Okay. All right, so as we know, we are looking at our proposed budget for 2022. We have until September 28th to adopt a proposed budget, at which time we'll make it available to the public on our website and with the town. We'll hold our budget hearing on October 19th, and that'll be when we will finalize the budget and take any comments from the public. So what we're going to look at tonight is the draft that I put together and provided to the board for review and comments. As we know, last year we did a 0% tax increase. Though we had our expenses, some of the our bigger expenses, our salary, our retirement costs, our healthcare costs, did increase about 5% last year. But given that we had some surplus available to us, we decided to go with the 0% budget. So that just gives us an idea of where we started. This year, based on tax cap data, we are able to increase our tax levy 3.8%. So this is more than the 2% you typically think of. It is because we have carryover available to us from not increasing our taxes in the previous year. So 3.8% is sort of the maximum we're looking at without exceeding the tax cap. I have put together a budget with input from the chief on some items that he sees a need for in 2022, as well as data that's available to us for some of those, those are major costs that are outside of our control. So that's what I have presented here to the board. So some of just the biggest items, we know that based on our CBA, our salaries are increasing 2.5% contractually. However, we did have quite a bit of turnover in 2021. We had some retirements at the highest tier and the highest salary, and we're just now bringing on board a new group of firefighters at starting salary, so that is impacting that. So even though our salaries are increasing 2.5%, it's not having necessarily that size impact on the budget. The other good news this year was because last year we saw our retirement system costs go up about 25%. The rates are coming down for next year, which was good news. It said, the comptroller put something out that said basically across all tiers, the only one that is increasing slightly is tier 6, which is typically our lowest contribution rate because tier 6 contribute a portion themselves. So between the rates decreasing from the retirement system and also, again, how the spread of our tiered workers is changing. Like we said, we had a lot of retirements in tier 2 and we're bringing in new people at tier 6. We are going to see a decrease to our retirement system costs next year, which obviously was good news. And then our other sort of biggest expense is our costs for medical benefits. We use night shift. They have indicated at this point that they are not releasing any kind of estimates. I think because in the past they would never really hit them and probably they were less, did more harm than good. So they're not releasing them. Rates will not become available to us until November. However, you'll see in the budget, I believe we have the ability to leave that cost static based on historical estimates where we increased the budget. We did have a little bit of room there, so I think we can leave that. Otherwise, just a few other small items that have changed in the budget, certain things with emergency equipment, radio equipment and maintenance. You know, we've been doing some upgrades on our radios in the last few years, so we see some movement there. And also in our fire equipment and capital outlay account, the last couple of years we've been using this account in place of funding an apparatus reserve or a capital improvement reserve. We've had some work going on. It was decided that we were going to, you know, spend down the reserve we had currently prior to putting any more money away for that purpose. This year, the way the budget is drafted currently, I did increase that from 160,000 to 300,000. The thought process behind that was twofold. One was that the chief mentioned one of the, you know, big items we would be looking at in 2022 would be replacing our air packs. It is possible we're going to try to get a grant for that, but we just don't know at this point in time if we will get one. Obviously, it's a significant expense. The chief quoted it as about 250 to 300,000. So given that it's something that we need to do, we're getting to the point where they have to be replaced. I did include that in the budget with the thought process that if we are fortunate enough to get a grant for that, we'll have that 300,000 available to us for you know, putting away for a potential future apparatus purchase, which is something we've been talking about, looking at more actively in this year's budget.
Jamie, can I make a statement first? Well, two statements. The budget is online. It's on the Eastchester Fire Department website. It will be. Okay. Tonight. Good. So just to let the public know that, and also about the air packs. Yes. The Scott, right? Yep. We've had 2 health and safety meetings, and at both of them, in 2 years in a row, we talked about individual regulators. Yes. You know, especially after what we've just experienced in the last year. A lot of people probably don't realize, but they have their own face piece, but the regulator source of air goes into that face piece, and of course it's impossible to clean. So as one member breathes into it, the next member coming in is going to be subject to whatever he breathes into. I think we found that the price of those regulators were $3,000 a piece.
No, about $1,000 a piece for our current air packs, and I don't know what price for the new ones because the air packs actually haven't come out yet. It's like a new Scott model that they designed for FDNY. So when it comes out, they've been assured it'll be out this year. And the grant cycle will probably be in November. So, you know, I'll have the grant, you know, sometime in November. The packs will be out. So I've been told by other departments they've tried for individual regulators. The grant will not fund that, but we can fund that through our department. And the grant will fund, the last time we got it was probably 15 years ago. And it was, we have 42 air packs on the various apparatus and cars. And you get 42 air packs and 84 bottles, right? So 2 Scott bottles for each air pack with a regulator, with a mask. But the grant will not fund an individual. So we couldn't ask for 74 regulators in the grant. But we could purchase the additional 35 or whatever we need to do individual regulators. I think that's a great idea.
Sounds like a conversation for next year, though, when we have the new packs out.
Yes, yeah. So the grant takes quite, you know, it's probably like a 6 to 8 month cycle. So if you get through the first round, you get through, you know, computers review the first round, then people review the second one if you make it that far. So, you know, there's limited money in the AFG, Assistance to Firefighter Grants. And so, you know, they review every single one and it goes through a board of other firefighters to determine which districts are most deserving of it.
But you're purchasing the equipment no matter what.
Yes, I mean, like I said, our air packs are 15 years old.
So, you know, as you go through that purchase process, just consider that.
Okay, definitely. Yes.
I mean, unless that needs to be voted on by the board, because we are kind of switching a purchase, and what you're saying is like $35,000. Should we do that now or put it off for later?
I'm fine doing that. What are you doing?
Right, well, we were talking about adding individual regulators when we order a new set of air packs for the firefighters next year, that we instead of them sharing regulators, that they have individual regulators.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that.
All right, so I'll make a notion that...
But I have a question. Just so I understand, are you trying to add it to the tentative right now, or are we gonna add it, like we're doing the budget?
I don't think we need to add any money to the budget amount of 2, I mean, I don't know how close you skinned this, but from my conversation with the chief, I just understand it's gonna add $35,000 to the total cost.
Approximately, yes.
And it probably won't even be purchased to 2023? Is that a good
No,
possibility?
I would hope we would get an answer on the grant by late summer, you know,
So you expect
and
to-
then if we don't get the grant, then I would hope to
What is-
purchase that
what is the
late in
grant? Which grant?
2022.
Just a typical grant to,
The last time we got our
Homeland
air packs
Security.
replaced 15 years ago, we were, at the time, Assistant Chief Supple applied for and received $250,000 America Assistance to Firefighters grant that comes out every year. So I'm gonna try it again. I actually have his application, you know, I can use some of the information on that, as far as demographics for our
Yeah.
area. So, you know, I only hadn't put in for it last year or this year because I was waiting for a new air pack to be designed. You know, we can't say a specific air pack, but, you know, we've been waiting for improvements in the current air pack. And then I've been assured that it'll be out by this year. So if we get the grant, it won't be sometime till next year, probably summer, midsummer, to,
Okay.
you know, early fall.
Okay.
so what do you think? Should we just put it off and wait at that time and address it at that time?
Whatever's the
I mean,
board's
I don't have an
pleasure.
exact number on, you know, how much the cost will be. I'm just guessing based upon the old air packs. You know, I would assume it would be similar, but it could be,
More,
it
okay.
could be more.
I apologize, Danny.
Okay, so then just looking at the budget overall, so what I proposed in the budget for discussion tonight was a 2% tax increase. Now, that does not cover the full amount that we anticipate our costs are increasing. However, it would raise our taxes, so we would have a partial tax raise and then partial appropriated fund balance to cover our anticipated expenses for 2022. So last year, we did a 0% tax increase and appropriated fund balance of about $920,000. The way it's drafted currently, I proposed a 2% tax increase, which is about $350,000, with an appropriated fund balance of the $640,000. Our total expenses would be, or the total budgeted amount is $18,710,662.81. That's the breakout as it is currently proposed. I also provided to the board, just to give you a feel for, you know, various different percentages, what the tax increase would look like. And as I mentioned earlier, we are able to increase it up to 3.8%. Even at that rate, there would still be some need for an appropriated fund balance, and that goes back to last year, sort of the amount our expenses increased versus the fact that we did a 0%, so there is an element of catch-up in here. So I do think it is prudent to do a tax increase, and as I mentioned, the way it's presented currently is 2%, which is obviously up for discussion.
Well, I think you did a great job on the budget, and we're under budget for this year.
Yeah.
So we're going to have money left over, possibly more than the appropriate fund balance of $922,000 that we used last year. So it might be appropriate to raise that, because the only thing that I saw that was missing from the budget was that we had discussed 2 or 3 meetings ago about an apparatus fund. We know that we have a 19-year-old tower ladder up on Station 5, and that's going to have to be replaced in a year or 2 or 3 tops. So it would be nice to just start, if that could be added to the budget, like $200,000 in an apparatus reserve fund, if the rest of the board believes that's an appropriate use of money.
Do you think that's enough money to put into for the tower ladder? Being tower ladder's probably going to cost about $1.5 million.
I mean, obviously, if we continue the way we're going and come under budget each year, that can be increased next year. Certainly,
Okay.
you know. That would bring, you know, the 200,000 would bring the appropriation fund to $840,000.
Correct.
You know, and if people on other things, you sent us something about the radio today, did I read?
Yeah, I'll bring that up.
That's already budgeted for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was
Okay,
budgeted
good,
for
perfect.
this year's budget.
Any other thoughts?
The additional firefighter?
Yeah, there was a position that was created a couple of years ago by the existing board at that time to put an extra position, extra firefighter position in the budget, but it was never funded. And I would like to have that position funded for next year. It would mean one extra firefighter every 4 days, working.
So-
Been erased by social service.
There is a position, so what, at the time when we decided to open an additional position with civil service, it was to allow us to maximize our CPAT candidates. It was never discussed as being budgeted for. So that's the discussion now. So the position is open with civil service. They have not, at some point, they likely will come to us and say, your open positions don't match your budgeted positions, which is it going to be? But right now, so it really is just like on paper with civil service, we have one additional position that is open. And the reason it was done at the time was because for every one spot you had open, you could send 5 people to CPAT, and it let us send more candidates at that time. I don't know if it was ever, at that time, the intention to create a new position within the budget. Obviously, if that is something the board wants to do, certainly something that can be added, but that is not contemplated in this budget as drafted. As we were talking about earlier, our current starting salary for a new firefighter is $56,375, which obviously increases, but there's other costs that go with that, pension costs, healthcare costs. So you would estimate around $100,000 to be safe if you were looking to actually add that position to the budget.
Yeah, I don't see that as a tremendous expense within the $18 million budget. And it would mean, like I said, an extra person working every 4 days. You would have, every 4th day you would have an extra person working in a tour. And if we have a problem next year, like we had this year, where we had several long-term absences, that firefighter could be used to possibly mitigate some of the overtime by having that extra person working.
I agree. I mean, my other concern, Tom, really is the ladder, because let's say this thing goes next year, then what do we do? I mean, if you need to buy a ladder next year sometime, which we probably don't, but let's say we do need to buy a ladder next year.
You'd have to go out for bid, you'd have to bond it.
Right, so I'd rather,
You'd have to have.
I mean, I know we look at Jamie's 2% number. I'd almost rather go to 2.5% on the budget, just so we have an extra little more money for the ladder and for the position, as opposed to having to move that money around inside the budget. It's only going to amount to less than 0.5%, basically. So if you go to 2.0,
You did send us like a 0 to 4%, I don't see it right
I
now.
did,
Do you
yes.
remember how much going from 2% to 2.5% would be?
I think it was one at 3, which is.
I did, yeah, I went up to the max 3.8. So at the 2%, we're increasing taxes $353,910. 2.5% is $442, and 3% is $530,000.
I'd rather have a little more in there than a little less, and at the end of the day, the additional
90
1%.
grand, almost 90 grand at that.
Right.
So you could make the fire truck, what did we say, 300? 200?
200.
So we can make it 250 and get a better start on it. And hopefully
Right,
it
so
would be
just
added again next year.
Difference between
And then in
350
3 years, you would have half the cost.
Right, but do we want to have more than that in 3 years?
Well, at least you'd be under having to go out to bid for it, or get a bid attorney. Because if you go over $1 million, you have to hire a bid attorney to put it up. So if you tried to put a rough amount for 500,000, you could just vote on it and put it out, and that would be fine. You'd save yourself 50 grand that way.
Okay. 17. Let's see what the years ago.
Hey,
So-
Jamie, could I ask you, if they do establish an apparatus reserve, is it a permissive referendum to do it, or do the voters actually have to vote to spend that money out of the reserve?
So to actually, well, no, to actually establish a reserve, it has to go on the ballot in December.
Okay.
And it has to be, from what our attorneys have explained, fairly specific, like what we're looking to use it on and what time frame we're looking to use it on. So if it's even, again, if we're looking to purchase a ladder truck by 2024 or whatever it is, something like that, that you would establish a reserve. And then yes, with our current reserve, you would have to do a permissive referendum before you spend the money, which means we publish it in the newspaper and we give the taxpayers their opportunity to say, no, we have a problem with you spending this money.
So to create the reserve, the public would have to vote on it?
That's correct.
Okay.
Just to create it.
Just to create it.
So if we put it in the budget, it doesn't necessarily mean that we actually have it. We have to then develop a referendum in December.
Well, I think we spoke about this earlier in the year. It goes to whether you're formally establishing a reserve or whether you're, for lack of a better term, earmarking this money for a future apparatus purchase.
And then roll it over each year as we build it up.
Exactly. And
Paul-
yeah.
Paul Sweeney? Paul?
Yes, I'm here.
Did you have me hear Jamie talking about either you go to the public and ask them to establish a reserve, or you add money to the budget and then kind of roll it over until you get the right amount to purchase? Is there a problem with that method?
Tom, I don't know because that's not my area of expertise, but fortunately Cheryl Sacco, who's not on the call, would be the person that could answer that very quickly.
All right, thank you, Paul.
I have discussed it with Cheryl. It was, there are, I think, pros and cons to each approach. I know, one of the things is that it's just, if the intention, what the fear, I guess, would be that it's this board's intention to use that money for apparatus. And then 3 years down the road, you have a different board and they say, oh, look, we've got $1.5 million. Let's go do something completely different. That's
And we haven't designated.
that, right,
so
because
they're
you have
hiring to
not
do
formally
that.
designated. When it's in a reserve, that is the only thing it can be used for. It's not, we have options of how to do it. So you could put it in the budget and say that this money is going to go towards a future apparatus purchase without establishing a formal reserve. That has been done in our budget in the past. We used to have an apparatus long-term and short-term account. So that's definitely a possibility. The reserve, we have not had a specific apparatus reserve in, certainly not since I've been here. When I started, we had one sort of commingled reserve, which we have since rectified because we were told that wasn't the correct approach with the reserve. So you have options there.
And to be honest with you, I don't think that giving future boards the ability to spend money in a way that we could not foresee is a problem. I trust the elected officials of 5 years from now to do the right thing with money that we set aside. If other people think that way.
Jamie, what's the current level of our fund balance as it is right now, not including anything that may be added after the new year?
Once we account for getting through, to the, like how we typically, because of the timing.
Well, no, right now, like how much do we have sitting there?
Right now we have like 15 million.
15 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we collected all of our, we collected our money in May.
Mm-hmm.
We generally spend at about $1 million a month.
Right.
Similar to last year and the year before, I expect that we'll end the year around the same. We typically end with about $9 million.
Mm-hmm.
About $5 million of that is
to cover us
so
until
we
May.
don't need a TAN. That gets us through to
Right.
May. And then, so that's got us down to $4 million. Just about $2 million of that is in the capital reserve. So you have just a little bit over $2 million. That
Right.
is what you're left with.
So we're at about a 15%
Yeah.
reserve when everything's balanced out of the 18.
Right, which is not unreasonable considering
It's not.
our monthly spend.
It's
I
not.
mean, our
Fire
auditors-
districts used to having a lot more, but it's
Yes,
not.
it is.
The only thing I would say out loud right now is that I think the board should always be very mindful about taking too much out of fund balance. And we're already here, Jamie's already representing $640,000 out of fund balance. We should not be, I don't think that we should be needing to jump past the 640 or the 7. I mean, if you feel comfortable in going to 2.5, I would much rather think that it's more healthier for the department to raise it to the 2.5 than to take more money out of fund balance. That's just my own opinion. And I think that if there's members of this board that want to fund an extra firefighter position, then you should not be funding that position out of fund balance. You should be funding that position out of your operating budget and out of your tax collection, which is, you know, our main source of revenue. That's what I think. If the money makes sense, 2.5% increase on top of what we see right now will take us, whatever it is, $80,000 or $90,000 more than what we're asking. That's not a lot, and that should fund everything. It's not going to fund, though, you know, $500,000 just for another vehicle. So if this board chooses to raise taxes in order to buy a ladder truck versus going to referendum, to pay off a ladder truck of $1.5 million in 2021 amount is going to take you 6 years. So we have to understand whether or not that ladder has enough, or you'll have to increase that next year. I mean, even adding $300,000 after 4 years, you're still at only 1.2. You're not quite there yet, and then the prices are going to increase. I'm almost certain the chief is going to say, well, now you have to outfit it. And that's another amount. We don't even have a quote right now that actually says how much a ladder truck fully outfitted would be. We're completely using conjecture to assume what it's going to be. So if you want to start putting money on the side for a ladder truck, I think you should take the small steps, do the 300 now, maybe come back to the table next year as part of the operating budget or sooner and say, this is how much a ladder truck is going to cost us. Maybe apply for a SAM grant to see whether or not New York State can help you in that year or the year after. Put money in for the one unfunded position, if you will, and, you know, close up this year. That's, I support. I think Jamie did do a good job at putting this budget together. I like the fact that there's amounts that are going up and going down based upon what we're using and what we see is real in the department rather than past budgets where it was not as pinpointed. I want to use the wrong language, but I think there's no fat in here. The increases represent an increase in cost. The decreases represent a legitimate decrease of not either using the service, needing to pay for something, or needing to buy anything. I think that's what the taxpayers deserve. I do not have a problem pushing that budget here in front of us to 2.5 as part of its final adoption, as long as that 0.5% goes to something legitimate that's going to help the taxpayers. We're under the tax cap. I'm comfortable.
And I would just say, sort of in the same vein as what Stu is saying, is that many of the things that created the surplus that we have in the past are no longer here. So that's something to keep in mind, that the idea that we'll keep generating that surplus is not the case going forward.
Could you clarify that?
So for instance, like in historic budgets, we would say, well, we have a CBA and the CBA says all the salaries are going up 2.5%. So every line item related to salary, you would see a 2.5% increase. But really that line item was probably already over budget. You already had room in that budget line item, and now you've increased it 2.5%. So you have a budget of an amount for your firefighter salary that you know you're not going to hit, right? But whereas the budget I'm presenting to you, you see that firefighter salary is staying steady.
That it was ordered.
Actually, what we will pay out in salary next year. Like the max we will pay out based on the positions that are open, the positions that are filled. So those things again, where there would have just been room in previous years that added to that surplus are no longer here. I would also point out that this year and last year, in both years, we had a six-figure settlement that was not anywhere in our budget or anticipated. As we go forward and we make this budget more and more lean, those things now become real conversations. So.
I agree with that. And I think it's important for everyone to see, you know, here we are in an $18.7 million budget. We're here for various reasons. Did we have to be at $18.7 million at 2021? No, probably not. We could have probably been somewhere in the high 16s or the high 17s, but we are where we are right now. So if we can do smart expansion to the budget without busting the tax cap, making sure the firefighters have what they need to do their job, and also taking the taxpayers' needs into consideration about smart increases and smart investment, again, I'm fine with it. If the board wants to move, I would implore the board to adopt the tentative budget as is, ask for Jamie and the chief to work on the items that they talked about that difference of percentage, and then when we meet again, discuss what that looks like.
I'm not sure we can do
it.
that, because otherwise we have to meet again before September 28th, correct?
No, you would adopt the tentative tonight, and then on the day, October 19th, when we get back together to adopt the budget, we can make any changes we want up until the time that we
As
vote.
long as the amounts are there.
Yeah, as long as she has it in front of us.
All right, so is anyone prepared to make a resolution and a motion?
I'm prepared in my last budget to make a motion to adopt this tentative budget as is, as Jamie has put together for us. I think it's smart. It's a smart starting point. That budget can increase, it can decrease, but I think it's smart the way it is right now, and I would make that motion.
I'll second that.
All right, so I'll call the roll. Commissioner Rallone?
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo?
Aye.
Commissioner Raven?
Aye.
And Commissioner Roach will abstain. And the motion passes, Jamie will put that work together. All right, so budget workshop's over, treasurer report starts.
That was essentially my treasurer's report for this evening.
Perfect, I love it. All right, payment of bills, now I have to find that paper you just gave me.
What's that?
All right. So the board has been supplied with one set of bills and vouchers and one credit card bill for the board approval. Chief Tween has reviewed all prior to the meeting except the statutory claims and those specifically marked as reviewed by the treasurer. The treasurer has requested the board approve the following warrant number 1, dated September 16th, 2021, for $508,308,961.78 and a credit card bill of $1,445.26 for a total of $540,407.04. Motion made by Commissioner Roach to pay the bills and vouchers is presented with a second by Commissioner
Carlo.
and call
Aye.
Ryan, Carlo, Commissioner Carlo, Commissioner Raven,
Aye.
and Commissioner Roach is an aye. Bills are paid. All right, so Chief's report.
Thank you, Commissioner. August 21st, monthly activity report, 348 alarms, 2 fire-related, 187 EMS, and mutual aid was given 3 times, twice to the city of New Rochelle and once to the city of Mount Vernon. Vehicle maintenance continues using outside vendors. The trucks auction ended on August 30th for the old C-grade ladder 15, the 1988 C-grade. The winning bid was for $4,600, and Isan is coordinating with the bid winner to pick up the vehicle. Tim Dalton's and the members moved all the furniture and radios out of the firehouse yesterday and today, and the Engine 30 is now responding out of the Historical Society Library at 388 California Road as of last night. We are still keeping a presence in Chester Heights. That's why we made this move, as opposed to moving the engine up to headquarters, because at rush hour time, as everybody knows, Chester Heights is a very busy area with vehicle traffic. I'll be referring to the location as Station 4A. I don't know if we'll come up with a better name for it. The old firehouse that we had up on Montgomery during construction for Station 5 was Station 6. I didn't want to call it Station 6 again since we already had one, so hopefully this will be a short-term move and we'll be back in the firehouse when construction is completed. Vinco Builders have said that they are going to start work on Monday, the 20th, which is next Monday. Currently, 4 members are out on long-term absence. I'd like to mention that 2 members retired on August 28th. The first, William Cerencione, served just a few weeks under 32 years, and firefighter Frank Nanarello, just serving over 27 years. Congratulations to both of those members. The board approved department-issued cell phones for 11 members, lieutenants, captains, myself, maintenance, and the administrative staff, and several commissioners have the phones. Those phones have been obtained. And I believe one commissioner has yet to get his phone. It's just a matter of connecting with him. The 4 candidates that we have tentatively hired, waiting civil service approval, will be starting the Fire Academy on Tuesday, September 21st. The academy will run for 17 weeks. It'll run Tuesday through Friday, 10 hours a day, I believe 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And those members will be issued badge numbers 213, 214, 215, and 216. The transfer candidate is going through the onboarding vetting process, and I believe the board discussed issuing him the badge as long as he accepted the position. So even though his start date will be after the new probationary firefighters, he's going to get the lower badge. Is that my understanding that the board said last month? I thought that was a discussion. If that's not correct, if somebody could correct me. So that's fine? Okay. Normally we just do it by the date that they start, but I believe the board discussed this last month. On September 1st, we got hit with the remnants of Hurricane Ida. The next 2 days, we had over 300 calls for service, gas leaks, flooded basements, people trapped in vehicles floating down the street. Our firehouses got a little bit of water in the basement. One of our fire department vehicles, the captain's car 2102, was overcome with floodwaters. One member had to climb out the window. He couldn't get the door open because of the rushing water. Fortunately, nobody was injured. Just want to say the members went above and beyond during that storm. It was just from one call to the other, and it was coming in as people trapped in their basements and couldn't get out. So like every call, it seemed like life-threatening call after life-threatening call. People in cars floating down the street. And what happens is when those cars get filled with water, the heat from the engine causes all the windows inside to steam up. So you can't tell if somebody's in the car just from looking at it. So our guys had to wade out in waist-deep water to some of these cars to make sure there was no people inside the cars. So the membership, and led by Captain Yazzo and Captain DiBettetto on the night of the storm, and Captain Calvi the next day, who was almost busier with pumping out basements and gas leaks from water knocking out the pilot lights on furnaces and hot water heaters. They had numerous gas calls and water calls and making electrical systems safe in the basements if they were water damaged, shutting down circuits. So I just want to say thank you to the membership for a job well done during that 3-4 day, even went on like a 4th day, because Parkway Road and Bronxville had the Bronx River in their basements, and we couldn't pump out the basements until the water receded, and that took 3 days for the river to go back away from the houses. So we were there even on the 3rd or 4th day pumping out basements. So again, on that day we put engine 28 in our spare engine in service. Our spare ladder was already in service as the tower ladder was up at Ruscon getting repaired. We put a pickup truck in service with pumps. So we had additional members in the night of the storm, the next day, and so thank you to all those guys. This past month was 9/11, the 20th anniversary of 9/11. I asked the board to close the meeting with a moment of silence for all the victims, civilian and first responders, firemen, police, EMS, in memory of 9/11. Also, we had a volunteer member pass away. His name was Peter Mignon. He joined the North End Ladder Company for 2 or 3 years, and then he transferred to the North End Engine Company. He served from 1967 until 1982. He passed away on August 23rd. His badge number was 1483. I was notified by a member of the Rotary Club that they have arranged for a mobile 9/11 museum to come to Lake Isle Country Club's parking lot on September 29th and 30th. We're going to be part of welcoming them or honoring them coming to the town. It's going to be open, I believe, from like 9 to 4, but the schools are going to be going in the morning, so it'll be open to the public in the afternoons if they want to go see a mobile 9/11 museum. And thank you to the members who attended all the 9/11 ceremonies on September 11th, that Saturday. There was one at Town Hall, there was one at Eastchester High School football game. So thank you to all the members. So just ask the board to close the meeting in honor of those people. And last but not least, I had emailed the board a quote for replacing our VHF radio, our dispatch radio transmitter in the basement of headquarters. It's on Westchester County pricing, Westchester County contract 5686 BPS for $13,889.80. This is part one of the base station, and then we need to replace the radios in each firehouse and at our repeater locations. I'm still awaiting a quote for that, but I did get this quote yesterday. So I would ask the board to approve that radio upgrade, which was budgeted for in last year's budget.
This is to maintain communications with Westchester 60.
For them to dispatch us, yes. This is a dispatch radio. We don't talk back and forth on this. It gets the tones and dispatch.
In the basement of the
Headquarters.
that
It's
you've
the
shown
main
me.
transmitter and the antennas on the roof.
And you expect this is $13,000
Yes.
portion, and then each station will be an equivalent amount?
No, so the other ones are smaller radios, but each firehouse has 2, and then we have 4 repeater locations. So we're looking at about a total of 15 more radios at about $3,000 to $5,000 each. So that's probably going to be $50,000 or $60,000, I think. But I believe we budgeted $100,000
Yeah, I was just
for
gonna
the
say,
radio
another
upgrade.
thing under budget.
Yeah.
All right, so, I mean, I don't know how official I have to make that resolution, but I will make a resolution that we purchased the first step of this radio, which was, read the amount.
Yes, it's $13,889.80, and it's on Westchester County contract 5686 BPS, and also New York State contract PT 68715. One of them is for materials with Motorola, the other is for the installation of the radios with ESS, so that's why it's 2 separate contracts.
But for a total
Total of $13,889.80.
of, all right? Someone else?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's done, chief.
Thank you.
All right, so is that the end of your report?
That's the end of my report.
And Steve, are you going to tell us a report about IDA and material, additional equipment needed?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so then the next thing is a discussion of getting our secretary to be notarized, do notary training. She volunteered. We thank her very much. She's taking on so much as she comes in. I'll make a motion that we send her. She gave us a sample. The Mosing cost is $129. It says right here it's $79, but whatever you think is the most appropriate one to take.
We're talking on the far left side, so they said it's a recommended package, so unless, Paul Carlos, you have a recommendation.
I did mine, I did mine 40 years ago, whatever.
I'll make a motion that she can spend up to $150 on notary training and get
Whatever you want to do is
notarized.
fine.
Anyone second that?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. We appreciate it. All right, so where are we up to now? All right, so we put health insurance on the, do we want to table this for another day or? Yeah, that's good.
Whatever you want to do.
And so we're up to 916.
Wait, do you want to do a motion to table it?
Okay, do you have to take something on the agenda?
I'll make a motion to table
I'll
it
second
to the
it.
next meeting.
Till the next meeting. All in favor?
Aye. You guys just want to pass the budget right now? Do we need to vote?
Yeah, could you work it up, Jamie?
I have a computer.
Let's do it.
Whack it up.
First of all, I'd like to commend our membership for the fine job they did after the storm. But, these 100-year storms are coming yearly now. And what happened was we found out many times we go to a house, they didn't have the equipment to do anything with it. There's nothing worse than being called to a house for an emergency and you can't do anything to go to. We didn't have enough pumps. People had 4 or 5 feet of water in their basements, filled with sewage. We couldn't go in there with our station wear we were wearing because we were out all day. We were in something wet all day, and sewage and water and everything else. So I believe dry suits, extra pumps, life vests, a boat, different things like that. The proposal was put together. I don't know if you commissioners have seen it yet, but we were woefully inadequate in the equipment that we needed for that storm. If we knew another one wasn't going to come for another 100 years, fine, we'll wait. But they're coming with much more frequency now, and it's not an extravagant expense. I feel it's fairly inexpensive, the list that has gone through, and I believe it's fair, and I'd like the commissioners to consider it, and hopefully pass it, and buy the equipment we need. This way, the next time this happens, which will probably be next year or the year after, will be, adequately supplied. We had right over here at Bolton Gardens, every house in there was flooded. The whole complex was flooded. There's 20 or 30 homes in there. Everyone was flooded.
Have we seen this?
Everything was flooded.
And we appreciate it.
Woefully inadequate.
Has it been disseminated yet?
Right, so I received information from Captain DiBitetto like 4 days ago, and the pricing that he has in there is only a single quote, and you know, the boat's not on state contract, so I couldn't give this to you and say, hey, it's gonna cost us $32,000, which is what we estimate. You know, it could be $50,000, you know, once you know, get pricing and stuff. So I didn't feel that the information was ready to go. That's why in my report that I gave to the board, I said I'll have a more comprehensive report. I'm working with Captain DiBitetto and Captain Calvi on equipment that we need. And one of our members is a cold water rescue trainer with New York State, firefighter DiRienzo, and he's the one that worked on this with Captain DiBitetto. So I'm in the process of it. It was just 4 days wasn't enough time to do it with the move to Chester Heights. I just needed a little more time before I presented it to the board.
We agree with you, Steve, and we do think that I mean, I myself looked up, and I know I get made fun of for looking stuff up on Amazon, but you know, we have choices. So, you know, we can go for multiple small pumps, which I'm in favor of. You said you had 50, 60 houses that had to be pumped out. And I would love to see a procedure written up by the fire department on how to do it, how to maintain inventory, and operate as quickly as possible. So you're not sitting somewhere for 30 minutes, but you're actually dealing with every house as they're calling you. But again, thank you very much. You guys did a great job.
Because we had houses all in a row. So we're going, you know, 21, 22, 23, you could have had one pump in each house, in an hour, you're done. Instead of an hour in each house.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%.
Thank you.
I have a question, Steve. And the chief either, the list that we got, does it include anything for us to consider as far as powering the pumps? Generators or anything that are?
Yes, the generators are also.
Okay. Because we're not going to be, you know, we laugh about this, but people don't get it. We can't just have a pumper truck pump someone else's basement out and go out the other end, because we don't know what's down there. You know, one plastic knife will kill it.
I was talking Legos.
Yeah.
A lot of Legos in people's basements.
Right.
But yes, I mean, some are gas pumps, some are electrical. Thankfully, we didn't lose much power. There's mostly flooding, no power this time. So we have to use the people's power. But in the future, we might not be able to. So there are generators that are.
Okay. And from that point, I would encourage all our citizens, you know, if you know a storm is coming, they're not every 100 years, they're every year or every 10 years at least, go out and buy a $200, $300 pump, have it available so you can put it into operation if you need it.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah. All right, so...
if I may, just in addition to your report, Chief, I believe you also had to respond to Scarsdale for a structure fire they had in Scarsdale?
Yeah, the night of the storm, I believe at like 11 o'clock at night, we had to send a ladder and 4 members up to Scarsdale because they had a structure fire going on and we were there fasting.
So in addition to all these calls that the guys are going on, you still had to send a piece of apparatus to another community to help them out as well. So it's not just what's happening in town over here. It's what's happening in other places as well. If they have a fire and we have to go, we have to respond there as well. So yes, go over that list.
Any public comments? Commissioner comments?
I have my annual speech I'd like to give, unless somebody else has something else they want to do first.
Yeah, why don't I just, before we get to that, I don't want to come in after that. Just a couple things. I just want to say again, thank you for everything that the fire department did during this storm. A lot of people are still without power, maybe not here, but we're all dealing with it in different ways, and the fire department really came through in a lot of different municipalities, whether they be volunteer or paid, to help a lot of people in need. We appreciate it. It should go without saying that, you know, it's a vital insurance department for the villages and the town to have people who will come out from their own properties and wade through water like that to only find a car empty. But to do that takes a certain individual, and I thank you for that. Secondly, of course, in light of 9/11, Paul's going to give a great rendition of that, but I just, something a little bit more smiley, which has been a long time coming since COVID, is that we will be having Columbus Day weekend this year. It is in the process of being organized, but every year we ask the chief of the department to please allow us to have a rig or two at the bottom in case you have to peel off. Local 916 and commissioners are invited to march in the parade. We will be having the carnival. We will be having as much as we can. There are a few things that we are omitting this year in light of COVID, but we will be having the event. The event is going to go from Friday, October 8th through Monday, October 11th. Everything is on the EastchesterColumbusDay.org website as far as operating hours and entertainment, and we hope that everybody comes out and helps revitalize Eastchester. From what I've understood so far, the Greek Fair this past weekend was very good. We know that the Norwalk Oyster Festival and several other events happening in the Sound Shore area and Lower Connecticut were also attended very well over the last couple of weeks, so we're excited to bring that back to Eastchester. So everybody is invited, and most of all, our fire department is invited to be a part of our parade and the event and the commissioners. And that's it. And just thank you again for everything. We really appreciate it.
And thank you for still organizing that for Eastchester.
At least one more year.
And October, we already have a meeting date?
Yes, we have to meet on October 19th. That's our budget hearing.
So our next meeting is October 19th, when we're going to finalize the budget. So Fire Prevention Week will probably take place between now and then. So I will encourage everyone to look at their premises, their residents, and make sure that they're safe, all the exits are safe, the windows open, and well, it's summertime, they know that. And that they have batteries in their fire alarms, and smoke alarms and gas alarms.
I have one other question I forgot. And I know I've been a nudge about this, but where are we with the election? Because generally we have to get approvals from the county, right? Approvals for the machines, the roll, it's an administrator, I sent a couple of emails. Are we gonna have stuff on the agenda for October? Because the board has to approve things, county contracts, the voter inspector roll, all that stuff. So you think we're gonna have that for October?
Yeah, I can prepare that. I've done the preliminary review that the chief also provided, say for last year, and also I'm compiling a lot of the contacts and kind of a general timeline, so I can prepare that for October for sure.
Okay.
So, but if there's anything more specific you want to learn about, I can always email.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I want to make sure of is that we don't miss the window and not be able to have the election.
Okay.
That's the only thing I'm worried about.
I think he's saying sent us an email. putting
Okay,
like-
that's fine.
that she's on top of it. Is there anything the board can do for you?
At the moment, I mean, not off the top of my head, I feel pretty confident given the the chain of emails I saw from last year. The chief showed me also the bids for kind of what took place for 2020, 2019. I think once I get also some more grounding for starting to connect with everyone from my contact list, then I'll be able to probably reach out if I have any questions.
Okay.
If they exist, I would take a look at the minutes for September, October, and November, because we also have to vote and approve what people are getting paid and who are getting paid. These are all like the little tiny screws that have to be done in order for us to do it.
The
So-
state basically tells us.
I know, but we have to approve them. We have to
Okay,
approve the
okay.
pay.
Oh, that's
So
true.
I'll do that to look at the minutes for September, October, and go from there. So,
Reach out to us if you need anything, if you're on track, and just keep, like you do your updates.
okay. So,
Thank you. All right, so we're going to turn it over to Paul Ranalone, Commissioner Ranalone, and then we're going to stand up and do the moment of silence as soon as Paul is done with his talk.
Yes, and before I give my speech, there's one other thing. The union is requesting the use of Station 2 meeting room for their union office because their union office down in Station 3 got some water in it, and I understand there's mold down there now.
Yes.
So they're requesting the use of Station 2 volunteer meeting.
Whatever. I'm fine with it. As long as the chief's fine with it, I'm fine.
Yeah, do we need to vote on that, or just
Chief said
we're
no.
not?
Sorry.
I brought it up today.
Yeah, if you could give us access, Tim can cut the sheetrock out wherever the mold is starting to go, because
It's the last few rainstorms, we got like few inches of water, we put all our stuff up higher, okay, now the walls are mold, so.
Okay.
It's not basement, it's not being used, the old volunteers is not being used anymore.
Weird.
Does anyone believe we need to vote on that, or is that just a matter of?
Right now it has like engine company stuff up there, so I guess I'll try to get in touch, or maybe Commissioner Ranello can get in touch with somebody from the Tucko Engine Company, and they can remove their pool table and things, you know.
We won't disturb any of this stuff, if
Okay.
that's not right away, we won't.
All right, so it
disturb
sounds like a management job.
Okay, we
And,
can.
and then also another management job is if when Tim is free, and I know he's busy, we have to empty everything out of Bronxville at some point.
For,
Well, we have to get all the, aren't we gonna do repair at some point?
yeah, but it's mostly union stuff down there.
It will be-
Bunker gear, no fire
Yeah, we'll
district
probably
records?
take the bunker gear once Chester Heights is done, we'll have that facing all that.
Right, okay, you're right. And we have to also archive our fire district records are down there, or decide how we have to deal with them.
I mean, you know, we had looked into it, there are grants to digitize records, so we would have to write up, like go out for an RFP and, you know, figure out a cost that would, how much will it cost to digitize all our records, and, you know, that, I mean, that's the best thing, to have them as, you know, like a digital backup to the paper copies. You know, a lot of places do that, I'm sure the town has probably done that, right? I think that's where I got the idea. No, maybe not.
I don't know.
Anybody
Their records go
interested
back a lot
in
longer
that?
than ours.
Yeah.
All right, well anyhow, something to think about
Yep.
in the future.
I'll get into my annual speech here. It's unbelievable that it's been 20 years since 9/11, and it was very emotional. I usually don't watch the 9/11 programs on TV because I find it too depressing. Unfortunately, the day of 9/11, last week, I did watch that day, the reading of the names down at the memorial, and it brought everything back to me. So without further ado, this is my speech. From Wednesday, September 12, 2001 through Sunday, September 16th, the Eastchester Fire Department sent a fully manned engine and ladder company to cover Bronx firehouses or to stand by at Yonkers Raceway for deployment. I was at Station 1 and remember feeling worried about these mutual aid companies, not knowing what might happen to them. On Thursday, September 13th, Mount Vernon Fire Department Local 107, in conjunction with the Westchester Professional Firefighters Coalition, was able to contact officials in New York City in order to organize a relief effort. After getting approval to do so, they contacted all the professional firefighter unions in Westchester. In a matter of a few hours, 120 firefighters from all over Westchester met at Mount Vernon Fire Department Station 3. Included in that number were 10 Eastchester firefighters. 2 EFD members were able to get 3 buses at no cost. Shortly before 7 p.m., the buses left Mount Vernon with the state police escort to Manhattan. Almost from the time we turned onto the West Side Highway, people lined both sides of the street with signs and flags thanking us and cheering. Signs read, "God bless you, you're our heroes." The buses parked off Hudson Street on Beach Street. Upon arrival, all firefighters were organized into 10-man companies with either a lieutenant or captain in charge. I was in charge of the Eastchester contingent. We walked from the buses to the staging area, 1 block from what has become known as Ground Zero. Along the way, people on sidewalks clapped and thanked us, offered us food, water, gloves, masks, anything else we might need to do our work. Walking along, we could see and smell the smoke from what was once the World Trade Center. At the staging area, we saw an engine and ladder truck on a side street. The truck's aerial was mangled and bent over the cab. That truck is now in the museum at the World Trade Center. The engine was recognizable only by the front part of the cab where the driver and officer would sit. Everything else had been crushed to about 5 feet high. On the officer's door, someone had written in memory of the lieutenant and firefighters who had apparently all been killed. After getting permission to proceed, we passed a parking lot filled with burnt-out cars. We stood in front of Three World Financial Center, now used as a rest and rehab station. Construction workers cut up the fallen North Bridge in preparation to move it out of the way in order to gain access to the main area of debris behind it with heavy equipment. We walked between 3 and 4 World Financial Center along the Winter Garden atrium and into 2 World Financial Center to the front entrance on West Street. From this point, we got an unobstructed view of the massive destruction. From this entrance to 2 World Trade Center, a distance of about 600 feet, were steel box beams lying parallel about 3 feet apart on top of 10 to 15 feet of concrete and other pulverized debris. There were several hundred rescuers in about a dozen bucket brigades removing debris from around the 7-story stump of the tower and passing it down to the front of the financial center, where it was dumped and the empty buckets returned to the front of the line. Iron workers cut up steel beams which would be passed down the line and thrown on the pile. We filled on several of these lines, balancing ourselves on the box beams. In some areas you could look through the rubble and see the remains of a fire truck or ambulance. Several of our firefighters attempted to tunnel beneath the box beams in order to look for victims below. Every so often, someone would yell to be quiet. The generators and power tools would be shut down, and everyone would stop working and just listen for any sounds from the debris pile. After a minute or so, work would continue. Looking up and around from the middle of ground zero, or the pile as the firefighters called it, gave a clear view of the destruction. Every window facing the Twin Towers had been blown out, and chunks of buildings had been gouged out from falling debris. The sides of the remaining buildings were covered in a thin coat of powder that could be seen floating in the air through the glow of floodlights. It was several inches thick for many blocks around the site. Despite the hard work, early Friday morning it got noticeably cooler, and about 2 a.m. it started to rain. A drizzle at first. Suddenly it started getting heavier, making footing treacherous, and since we were working in t-shirts, the rain just made us wetter and more uncomfortable. An FDNY chief officer called off operations, and our chief officers decided it was time to go back. So we picked up our gear and headed back to the buses. On the buses, we were tired, cold, and wet. There was little, if any, talking on the return trip to Mount Vernon. I began to wonder what we had accomplished by going down there. We moved perhaps a couple of tons of debris, a literal drop in the bucket of the estimated 1.2 million tons of rubble. We had saved no lives. Only one body had been recovered. Yet for 8 hours, we had been willing participants of a piece of history, something people will talk about long after we are gone. We were the first group of firefighters to go down to ground zero, but not the last. 2 shifts of Westchester firefighters, Eastchester included, per day responded to the World Trade Center site over the course of the next several days. The only reason this effort was discontinued was the FDNY went to a 24-hour schedule with half their personnel working at any one time, meaning they had enough manpower to send to the site and man their firehouses. Whatever needed to be done and whatever we were asked to do, we would not have hesitated on this new day of infamy, September 11, 2001. And the personnel who went down with me on that date was firefighters Quentin Baker, Joseph Pinto, Stephen Ranalone, James Rockhill, Ken Simonides, Glenn Strawbridge, Brian Tween, Vincent Spadaro, and William Wiggleman. In the last 20 years, one of the members that went down with us, Vincent Spadaro, died of cancer. It's unknown if it was 9/11 related or because he never got checked. He never went to the doctor and got checked. And we currently have 2 members who more than likely got cancer from 9/11. I believe one case has definitely been decided upon, and the other one is waiting to be decided upon. And what I have next is what happened afterwards. Starting on September 11th and continuing for days, weeks, and months afterward, ordinary people, organizations, and businesses donated money, food, water, and clothing to victims and rescuers. A couple of weeks later, Local 916 had a Fill the Boot fundraiser at the intersection of Mill Road and White Plains Road and collected over $20,000 for the FNY Widows and Children's Fund. That was in one day, in 4 hours, $20,000. 1 week after 9/11, an estimated 6,000 people filled the property outside Town Hall for a memorial service with political representatives from Eastchester, Tuckahoe, and Bronxville. The clergy of almost every faith that has membership in the town offered words of blessings and comfort to all. The three police departments, the fire department, EVAC, all were well represented. Weeks later, the fire department and police department played a charity basketball game. Local 916 sponsored the collation at the funeral for Fire Marshal and Tuckahoe resident Ronald Buca at Concordia College. Members attended numerous funerals, thanks to retired FDNY Captain Bill Spinelli, and as a direct result of this, our sales of the FDNY 343 hats, Captain George Glover Jr. and I were invited to attend the FDNY memorial service held inside Madison Square Garden in October of 2002. Although it was a cold and rainy day, about 30,000 firefighters from across the country and around the world marched in a parade prior to the service. It is amazing what can be accomplished when people put aside their differences, get together, and work for the common good. And that's my speech.
We'll stand for a moment of silence for all those that perished in 9/11 and been dying of cancer since then, and for our lost member, volunteer firefighter Mion. I'll make a motion to end the meeting.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks, Tom.